Don't you think it's about time for a podcast that's more fulfilling? One that's about the vibrant exchange of ideas and perspectives that happens when we actually come together. We got you covered. Welcome to the DeepBlu Project, where the depths of conversation meet the waves of personal experience. This is a real, raw, and unscripted show about everything from leadership lessons to self-awareness, wellness, and the latest current events. We cover it all. We have a rotating cast of guests as we share our personal stories, insights, and opinions on the issues that matter most. Plus, we have a blast while doing it. The DeepBlu Project. It's not just a podcast, it's an experience. And now your host, Chris Workman.
Right, everybody, welcome to this episode of the DeepBlu Project. I am so happy to have with me a guy who's become, a confidant a little bit, of a friend. We talk more online. This is the first time we've actually had a chance to chat together because both very busy. But we got him on today, and that's my friend Jason Palamara. Welcome, Jason. Thank you for being here.
Chris, thanks for having me, brother.
It's great to have you here. For those of you who don't know Jason, real quick, I got to know who Jason was through a mutual friend who I had on this podcast a little while back, Barbara Rubel, who co-wrote the book Living Blue with Jason Palamara. So we're going to talk to Jason today, kind of see how he got into this, where he kind of started everything, which I think is very, very interesting. His beginning of his story, the beginning of his police career, is something that is unique to New York. I mean, it's unique to, unfortunately, one of the darkest days in this history of the United States. And we're going to touch into that and a couple other things. Jason, if you just want to let everybody know kind of where you are, how you got here, and what you're doing.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And first and foremost, I love what you're doing, man. I love how you're, a leader in law enforcement, and you're taking that leadership and you're expanding and branching out to do things like the DeepBlu Project, and having people share their stories and really just have honest conversations about what we're going through. And it really does help. It helps to you hear that destigmatize, you hear smash the stigma, you hear all those catchphrases. But what you're doing is exactly that. So kudos to you first and foremost.
Well, thank you, my friend. But you guys have all started this, and you're part of that. And I'm just kind of trying to be that extra voice out there. So I thank you guys for what you've done up to this point.
Yeah, it's a team. It's a family. It truly is. So I started my law enforcement career in 2001. Prior to that, I did 3 years. I served 3 years in the United States Navy. So I went straight into police work. I was, I say it, lucky or unlucky enough to be in the 9/11 class. Lucky in that it really opened my eyes to police work pretty fast, pretty quickly. Would never want to repeat that, but I'm appreciative of the opportunity to be on the job during that time. And I, was in the academy for, I think it was about 9 months. They pulled us out when 9/11 happened. It wasn't long after we had started. We were out for quite a while. Put us right back in the academy as if really we didn't skip a beat. And I start with that because it is a stark difference from that time to where I see the culture today is, where we started going back into the academy, never another word about what we had just done or had been exposed to, all the things you hear, right? Trauma, vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, a lot of what we talk about in the book, none of that was addressed. There was no peer support. There was nothing like that. And that's how my career began, and went through my career really towards the latter part of it, the end years, really starting to stumble in that the stress and the things that I had been doing and had been exposed to and been a part of through the work that I was doing really started to mount and manifest itself into unhealthy behaviors and really just a downward spiral. And that's what got me into the behavioral health space. I wound up, fast forward, I wound up getting into, becoming a peer at the peer support program with the NYPD. I became a crisis counselor with a crisis center in New York. And during COVID, when like many first responders all over the place kind of were restricted in how they were able to do their jobs because of COVID, I kind of was stirring to do something else. So I became a John Maxwell life coach, and I was writing. I was writing at the time, and really not having any clear vision of where that was going to lead me. So I met Barbara Rebel online on LinkedIn, and it's as simple as this. I told my wife, I said, I read her book, but I didn't say goodbye. And I want to reach out to her. I want to see if maybe she'd be interested in doing a project together. And my wife said, what's the worst that she could tell you? So just do it. And I tell you, I'm probably exaggerating, but within seconds after I messaged her, she messaged me back and said, when can you talk? And that's how our relationship began. And I tell you, she has become a mentor, a friend. I consider her my family today. We've embarked on this journey together, and it's been a beautiful thing. So we wrote Living Blue together, and following Living Blue, it's just, again, that what can I do next? I worked for a behavioral healthcare company for a while post-retirement. And over the past year, my wife and I started Living Blue Apparel. We could talk about that later, but it's really simply just another vessel to bring our culture together. We wear stuff all the time, right? You're wearing a shirt. I'm not wearing a branded shirt right now, but we see our other brothers and sisters wearing gear. And when you see our stuff, when you see our logo, if but for nothing else, it lets you know that individual shares your culture, knows what you've endured, or the stressors, the relationship issues, the job stressors, the organizational issues that you might be going through, that for but a brief minute you say that person gets me and I don't even know who they are, then the job is done, right? So you know that you're not alone. So that's kind of what I've done, what I've been doing, what I'm planning to do in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did see the new brands coming out. I do love the logo. We try to find those things that bring us together, that mean something. And I think that's the exact same thing that you're talking about, is we just need to see it, or we have that conversation and it clicks right away. And I gotta echo your statements about Barbara. I mean, I could tell you the first few minutes I talked to that woman, you feel like she just embraces you in the moment you speak to her. And I was lucky enough to have that conversation. And I would tell anybody, if you haven't heard my podcast with Barbara Rubel, please go back and listen to it, because this
Mm-hmm.
woman has taught me so many things in a short period of time that it's wonderful. And I actually give her a shout out in my book, because I've never heard of compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma until I spoke with her. And I put that in there specifically because it was something I thought that people also, need to know about. Like I read about it, you guys talk about it in Living Blue, but I've never seen that anywhere but there. And now you kind of see it's creeping out into other things. So you guys have definitely put that out there, and I thank you very much for that. I think you guys have done a great job with the way the book is written. And I want to get back into it, like, because I think it's very interesting. When you guys did Living Blue, it's like you guys co-authored it, and the way it's set up is very, very, very interesting. And when I first opened the book to see the way you guys have it planned out, who kind of thought of that kind of direction? Like, because you have your thoughts and what you went through, and then she kind of backs it up with the things that she does. And I think that's a very interesting way of doing it. So who kind of came up with that?
Yeah, it was kind of a joint thing. I half kid, but I'm not, where she makes sense of my words. She brings understanding to my stories. I'm still learning. You mentioned about how much you've learned from Barbara. I'm still learning, right? When we stop learning, we start dying. So if we have to
Very
keep
much.
learning, and I learn from her every day. And yeah, it was kind of a joint thing. It was, I'm going to tell a little bit of my experience, right? The relatability. Even though Barbara lives blue, both her parents, as you know, were NYPD officers, right? Her mother was, original police women when they still wore skirts. I'm sure she told you, her
Yeah.
father, a sergeant. So she's very much living blue, like many family members of officers, right? So she brought a whole different perspective and understanding to kind of my experiences. And that is it's such an important thing to really focus in on. Imagine the understanding you would have if you learned those things day one in the academy, right? So when you now experience them on the job, you're not just experiencing them, you're experiencing them and saying, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is called. I know the symptoms of it. I know the positive ways I can cope in spite of it. And I know how to hurdle the speed bump. Whereas without that, it's confusion, not knowing, misunderstanding, which results in a whole array of negative, negative things that come from that. So yeah, it's a little bit of my story. She also talks about her stories, right? But she brings the understanding to what are we talking about? What does it mean? And how do we make steps past that? I agree. I love how it's the volley back and forth between her and I.
I think it works great. And for me, it kind of goes back to the whole reason I kind of got into what I'm doing. And I'm sure what you got into what you're doing, because we were never taught this stuff. I mean, we never, everybody told us, and I say it, and we all say it because we all know it and we all lived it. And anybody who's done this job for, 10, 15 years, they're still living it because they walked into a police car the very first time and the old grizzled sergeant, or whoever was working, just turned around and said, "Suck it up, kid." Like you went from one thing to another. And nobody taught us what this would do with it to us in our personal and professional lives years down the road. And here we are, 20 some years later, trying to do the things that you're doing, to do the things that we're doing, and a lot of other people. And I got to give kudos to all of them and the people that we have on this DeepBlu project, and the people that are on LinkedIn, and the people that are out there trying to destigmatize this mental health issue with our brothers and sisters. Is we're trying to get these people now before they get to where we got to, before they're taking their own lives, before they're walking out there with no idea of where they want to go. And there's more of them out there than we can reach. It's tough, but this is that beginning. And people like yourself and people like Barbara, and teaching people this at an early age and teaching this when they first come in, I think you hit the nail right on the head with having them a way of coping instead of going to the alcohol, instead of going to mood suppressors, instead of having other family issues or life issues. That's where we are right now, man. And that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, and you said it. There's so many great folks doing amazing things in this space, and your listeners who are in law enforcement will appreciate this, and I'm sure agree. You learn a lot in the academy, but you really learn the most of the job by doing, by getting out there, getting your hands dirty, putting handcuffs on people, right? Getting into those fights, making your arrests. You learn on the job training, right? That's a lot of what happens. So take that mentality and say, okay, maybe I have an understanding on what could happen behavioral health wise, right? Mentally, emotionally on the job, but recognize that you don't have that on the job training yet. And you get that by talking to other folks that have gone through it, by listening to podcasts like the DeepBlu Project, by reading books like our books. No one is an end all solution to what this culture is facing. It's all of us collectively together. I've read some books that are all clinical, that are all war story, that are a combination of both. They all have their value. I might find value in one read that you might not find value, right? Because it's going to resonate. Different books and different conversations will resonate with people differently. But the fact that we're having them is what's really important, because that speaks to the person in the back of the room, or the person who hasn't gotten enough courage to get into the room yet, to say, hey, wait a minute, really? They did the same thing. They went through the same thing. They're feeling the same thing. They had the same relationship issue. Let me listen a little bit more. And I think that's the greatest thing we can possibly do for this culture, is to let other people know that they're not alone. There's others gone through the same things, and you too can find that brighter side.
You hit that perfectly, because nobody's journey is the same. What's going to work for you may not work for me. I had just spoke Mike Slocum, who does camping for first responders and takes them out under the stars, and that helps them. Or some people do this. I say it all the time. People get sick. I'll probably hear me on this. This is my therapy. This is what worked for me. Like talking to psychiatrists didn't work for me. It didn't work. It was not. So everybody has to find, you please have to find what works for you, and don't quit when something doesn't work, because we're trying to give you those things. I think that's what all of us collectively are trying to do, is give you all these different types of outlets. Like try them until you find the one that works. Don't stop. Don't stop. because you'll find something, but don't stop.
And that don't quit attitude is what I love to talk about, right? It's when you feel that I've hit that wall and I really don't know what the answer is. I want to grab every cop out there and say, would you let a perp tell you that? Tell you I didn't do it. And you say, oh, you know what? That's all I needed. You didn't do it. The interview's over. Have a nice day. I'm sorry I bothered you. I'm sorry I wasted your time. You wouldn't. You would dig your heels in and you'd keep going. You'd keep getting after it. You'd keep investigating that case. You'd find another avenue or approach for that interview. That's what you do on the job. Do it in your own personal life. Do it with your own mental health. Don't give up. Say, okay, I don't know the answer. I have absolutely no clue what my next step is, but I'm going to be curious about finding out what it is. And if I can't find it out, I'm going to try to find it out with somebody else. Hey, what did they go through? What did they do? Right? You do it on the job. Do it in your personal life.
Look, we don't have the perfect pill. We're not telling you we know everything. I think one of the biggest things that I try to stress when people ask a question is like, how do I get out of this? I can't tell you how to get out of this. I can give you ideas, but I can tell you the first thing, and the one thing that it has to be for everybody, it has to be your mindset over everything else. You have to be willing to just have your mindset in a space where you're willing to go forward and to not quit until you find what's going to work for you. If that's telling yourself every day that today's going to be a great day, I mean, when you wake up, whatever it is, that mindset has to change. That defeated thing that gets us into that rut. That's what I found worked for me. It may not work for you, but find something. Exercise, journaling. There's so many things out there that people do. I think we're at that precipice of trying to get this out to others to say, it's number one, it's all right. Like, we all know what you're feeling. We've been through it. We fought this demon for years. We don't want you to fight this demon for years. We want you to learn now how to cope with that so that you can have a long and fruitful career and not have the personal, family, and professional problems that we all had to go through, because there's people still going through them. It took me to get to that moment, and I got to that moment where I didn't know what to do. I mean, I finally, luckily, I have to say I was strong enough to remember a conversation that I had with someone back in 2021, that I saw in a conference, who talked about them trying to take their own life and the things that they did, and I went, "Wow, I'm there. Like, I'm there." And when I sat there and listened to him, you thought I'll never do that. I'll never be there. And 3 years later, I found myself there. Jason, your book Living Blue with Barbara, I think is a great. If I can, I just want to see like how that manifested in yourself. Like, how did you get to that point where you delved into writing and things like that? Like, what put you in that space?
Thanks for asking that question, because it really it boils down to, been asked before, what was the catalyst of change for you? And it was kind of an evolving journey where everything was in the gutter, right? My relationships externally, when I say externally, outside my family, internally within my family, with my kids, my wife, my marriage, very angry, right? Not processing what was happening inside, and it was coming out and outwardly in a toxic way. In every interaction, in every encounter, in every conversation, just bad mindset. And it's a hard wheel to stop and reverse. But it was kind of a slow process, and it really was. I remember one time when I've talked about this before, and it really is. If you held my hand to the fire and said, "Give me the one time," that really kind of was that switch, and it was when my wife told me that was it. She was done, which had been said before, but for some reason, and I think it was God. It was no, this is real this time, and maybe it was in retrospect, analyzing that whole argument and that whole time, or maybe it was in the moment. I don't even know. But it was, what I'm doing is, and how I'm doing it is taking me away from the people I'm doing it for. And the very reason I'm doing it, something has to change. And prior to that, I had been trying to fix this, fix that, fix this person, fix this relationship, everything outwardly, not having a full understanding on my locus of control was right here inside me. And when that got fixed or that started to get worked on, then it could spiderweb outwardly. I was trying to do it the reverse. So that was kind of like the beginning for me. It was like, okay, I need to listen to what people have done. I need to read what people have done. I need to be around people that have done it. You know, a lot of the people I was around, listen, our culture is toxic sometimes, right? It's a reality. There's a two-sided coin. What is amazing and great about the law enforcement culture, first responder world, there's also a dark side. And it's a lot of the negative things are reinforced because of that brotherhood.
Right.
So, you've heard that, you're the culmination of the 5 of the closest people you spend the most time with, however that goes. And that really, there's some substance to that because I started to change some of the things I was doing or not doing. And I just I was really a bookworm, and I just delve into just reading, not just books in our space, people in other spaces, right? We're all humans. And like you said, people have heard you say certain things in nauseam, right? So people have heard me say we're human beings that happen to be cops. They're not cops that happen to be human beings. And when we remember we're human and we have all the same human attributes, characteristics that somebody else has, right? We get angry, we get sad, we get mad, we get, down on ourselves. So I was just reading about the life experiences of other people outside the law enforcement world and just really developing that curiosity on, I don't know it all. What can I learn now? And they're baby steps. There's babies, and I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes, and I'm still screwing up, and I'll trip, and I'll smash my face. And the difference is I'll get back up and I'll say, okay, I smashed my face. What's next? Whereas I smashed my face and I stayed down, or I pulled others down with me. That's the difference.
Right. And it's one of the biggest things I try to say, and I try to remind myself every day is this is an everyday process. This isn't I fixed it and now I'm good. Like I'm I'm comfortable in the space I'm in now where I wasn't before, but it's an everyday process. And if you're out here thinking that you're going to take this magic pill, it's going to be like the Matrix, and I'm going to take the blue pill or the red pill, and I'm going to be fine. It's not that. It takes time, and I think you put it perfectly. We are fixers. That's what we've done for our whole career. We get called to whatever we do. We're always the people that have to fix the problem. And then we end up doing it in our life, and then we ended up doing it in our home, and then we end up doing it everywhere, but we don't do anything for ourselves. And I've not heard it. That's the first time I've heard it put that way, and I think you hit it right on the head, and it kind of really resonates with me that's what I had to do along with what you're talking about. I found out. I came to the realization I had to fix myself and fix the things that were bothering me before I could patch up or repair anything that's outside. That is just such a great way to put it, Jason, and it fits me well. I kind of just blew my mind. Like when you do these all the time and you talk to different people, it's like reading a book. Like that's what it's like for me with with the podcast, is because you learn so much from people and you hear things that will just resonate and stick with you. And I'm so grateful for that, and I thank you for that. That is awesome.
Well, right back at you, brother, because you had the courage to get to develop a podcast. That's something that I won't dip my toe in. There's certain people that can do it, and you're doing it. And that's just it, and one of the big things too is talk about I'm still making mistakes and I'm still screwing up. Life's not going to be perfect, and not supposed to be. I don't know if I want it to be. But learning how to thrive in the pain, strive through adversity, start to get excited when life pushes back. Whereas before, when life was pushing, it was I'm getting pushed, right? But now when life pushes, it's okay. I know how to effectively push back and grow in the process. So it's things are not going to be perfect, right? There's no one podcast, one book, one magic pill. Like you said, to be honest, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the Matrix reference, and I will jump on the sword here. I've never seen the Matrix. I have not seen it, and I know people probably like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I have not. I've seen snippets of it, but I've never seen the movie in its entirety.
I will chalk you up as the first person that has ever told.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. This way, the next time somebody references The Matrix or asks me, I'm gonna have to say, "Yes, I've seen it." It's because of Chris.
I actually had a thing happen a couple days ago. I'm on the board, executive board for an organization. But you find when you're you're in them rooms with type A personalities, and you kind of things get a little heated because everybody kind of wants it their way, and you just you find yourself having to take a moment, and you're like, man, and you get mad at yourself a little bit because you're trying to not represent with anger or get loud or do whatever, but it's in that nature that you're still trying to change. And I look at it, I go, damn it, I did it again.
Yeah, but the difference is you recognize it, Chris. That's the
So then
difference.
you walk away, and then you're like, man, now I gotta go. I should go, say I'm sorry, apologize, go, look, I was just passionate about what I was saying, and I'm sorry that it came out that way. But you're like, man, that's what I mean by working on it every day. So anybody who thinks, that's kind of like the best example I can get.
Great
Look, we spend our lives like having to be in control. And I think that when, for me, that day I was out of control, and I really didn't know what I was going to do for, it's probably not the first time in my life, but the first time that I didn't think I could control anything was very scary.
Yeah,
And now the thing is, you're trying to, as you said, I try to recognize that. And I try to go, look, I'm still working on it, man. I know I could be an ass sometimes. It's sometimes it's in your nature. But I know that now I have to go back and recognize and make those amends and not let it go, because that was me being a moron. So that's just one of the things that I think that we unfortunately get to in this culture. And you mentioned it well, as this culture just teaches us from day one. And if you've been doing this 20 some, 30 some years, I think that's our point, is imagine all that stuff that you just kind of build up and don't deal with. And that's the shame of where we're at right now. And I think it's trying to get those officers and those people that have been doing this a long time to please just look at it and go, look, I know you're screwed up because I'm screwed up. And we all have done this. So I know what you've seen. I know what you've done. We're because that's our culture. That's what we were brought up in. And it needs to change. And that has to start from the top down.
yeah, absolutely. You mentioned about recognizing where maybe you said or did something that you have to go back and say, hey, listen, maybe I was not the way I was supposed to be, or as kind, or maybe said something a little out of anger. I think, we as humans, we're going to step away from just being blue. As humans, we blame ourselves, and we really get on ourselves for those missteps in life. But we can teach through our missteps and our mistakes as much as we can, probably more so than we can when we're doing life right. Right. So, for me, before it was, oh man, I wish this would have never happened. I can't believe I did or said that. I screwed this up, or this is the way it is because of me. Right. So on and so forth, where that changes to, no, I am not happy or proud of that, those things, but now using them as fuel for my own growth and to help others grow. So you can teach others in your missteps more so than you can in doing life right. So having that perspective shift in saying, hey, I am I'm ashamed maybe of, and that's a human emotion, of what I said or did, but I'm going to turn it around and use it as a teaching lesson. That's growth.
No, and when you get there, I think for me, actually getting there going, okay, yeah, I can see that. Or just taking other people's criticism, or not, I wouldn't say criticism, but view of what they saw or what they feel like, you seem like something's off. And I try to do that actually with even my officers now, or people that I deal with, like, you're just not quite yourself today. You seem like something's off, instead of being like, shut up, don't act like that. Like, you're kind of like, is everything all right today? And I think that's where the space that has put me, with reading these things, with interacting with others, and actually making this mindset change which is where it began, is changing that mindset and just trying to use that each and every day.
Yeah,
And
you
I think
guys are
that's one of
lucky
the
to have
things.
you. You guys are lucky to have you, right? Because you're a leader who I think is listening with his heart more than his ears and his eyes, right? And you experience your officers maybe a little off key for the day, and you have the mindset of let me dig in a little bit deeper. And I hope you know, not every leader does that, Chris. So you're an example. I have a good friend who said, I don't ask people how their day is going or how are you, right? Especially cops, right? How you doing? I'm good, right? Of course, that's what
Yeah,
you're going to hear.
yeah, I'm good.
Right. But if I was to ask you, Chris, we met in the command precinct, and I was like, Chris, how's your heart today? Wouldn't you kind of stop in your tracks and really give that question? Wait, what did you say? How's your heart today? Even if you say I'm fine, like you would if I asked you how are you doing today, I bet you're going to think about that question when we walk away, right? How's your heart today? And you're going to think of it, you're going to reflect on it. So it's just those little things, the way we approach one another, the way we maybe are more interested than interesting, right? Be more interested in how somebody's doing, truly heartfelt, than more interested in what you have to say or you're right. Well, ego's huge in culture, right? Be more interested in your people, and it's clear you're interested in your people. And again, they're lucky to have you.
If you are someone who's a leader in law enforcement out there, and you're listening to our conversations today, you have to be the first step. And I'm going to have to give this props to Barbara Rubel, because when I was speaking to her and she told me the story of her being on the stage and that fire chief giving that explanation and her turning and stopping and having the wherewithal as a person she grew up in law enforcement, she's not a law enforcement, to turn around and just make them recognize that this leader, as she says, gave everyone permission to not be okay and to seek out help. Like, you don't have to be that person in the front of the stage to give people permission. However, if you've led that culture of that stigma or that stigma is in your building, whether you're police, whether you're fire, whether you're EMS, whether you're whatever, we're a paramilitary organization. That's just the way it is. They're looking for your permission because they don't want to mess up. And that's what I got from her and from that, and why I've tried to change that is because you don't realize that no matter what you do, everybody's watching you, even though you don't know. How can I talk to you about your own mental wellness or saying I'm going to promote your mental wellness if I'm not doing it for myself?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
as leaders, I just hope that we have more people across this nation, through reading these books or talking to these people or listening to this podcast, and the people that we have on here that have poured their hearts out and have told you the things that have happened to them. It's us giving you kind of that leeway to go, look, you're not alone. We've all done this, and you've obviously have some sort of trauma in your life by dealing with this stuff. So why, if you want your people to be right, why don't you want yourself to be right?
Right. It's 100%. It's living out your what you're speaking. And we talked before we got on about you speaking engagement coming up, and public speaking is not something I had an idea that I was going to be doing. Right. It wasn't my initial interest. Public speaking is feared by vast majority of humans. Right. But like you just stated, to reinforce that, how can we not do something that is fearful and then ask another first responder, another officer to say, I know you're scared to reach your hand out. I know you're scared to say, hey, I might need some help. I'm not going to do it. Right. But for you, I need you to do it. It's not going to work. So I have no problem getting in front of people and making an absolute fool out of myself. If that helps one person that says, you know what, maybe I could give that a shot. Well, then it's worth it, right? We're all going to our time here on this earth is but a short period. So what are we doing with that time, right? So you're leading by example, right? To what you were saying, leading by example, putting our words into action, doing what's uncomfortable sometimes. And I am a big advocate of getting uncomfortable to get comfortable. There is so much juice in shaking that tree.
Right.
It's not fun. It doesn't feel good sometimes, but there's lots of value there.
Yeah, I think I've learned over the last year a lot. And again, I think you're right in the fact that we don't quit learning. You quit you can you stop learning, you
Start
die.
that.
I mean, so the things the direction that this has taken me has been a blessing for me. And I'm grateful to be able to do it. And whatever pushed me in that direction, I'm happy to be there. I've met and spoke to so many different people in the last year that I've never thought I would be connected with or talk to, such as yourself, and made great friends and people I know that I can call or talk to for anything. Like when you feel that, I wish everybody could feel that. I have people ask me like how many books you sell so far? I'm like, I've probably given away more books than I've sold. It's not about that. It's not about selling books. It's not about doing any of that. It's about just trying to say, if again, I think you said it great. If one person hears you, if that one person, like I did from a person 3 years ago, remembers something that Jason said or Chris said or Mike said or Matt said, whoever, and it stopped them or led them in a direction that put them on the path that I am now on, God bless it. Then it did its job. Then I can say, you know what? It worked. And it helps someone. And that's all we're trying to do. That's all this whole process is about.
Like David Meltzer says, make a lot of money, have a lot of fun, help a lot of people. And if you're doing those three things, you're in a good place. If you're missing any of them, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing. But to follow that, if anyone thinks you make money off of writing a book, unless you're getting in advance, you spend more money writing a book than you do actually make any money. So it is a misconception. So I think we all do it. Most of us, the vast majority, do it for the right reasons. I've been in the behavioral health space for quite some time on the veteran side of things and the first responder side of things. And I see the there's a swamp. There are folks that are bottom feeders, and I like that because I like to see what you look like. I like to see you coming. But like in any profession, you're going to have that. You're going to have those people that are in it to win it just for themselves. They're easy to see. If you're helping people along the way, that's exactly what you should be doing. And, the same thing applies to therapy, right? And it kind of harkens back to what you said earlier about sticking with it. Sometimes it's hard to stick with it when your experience in therapy with a counselor, therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, is a negative one. And it's maybe your first one, or maybe it's your second bad one. And you're like, you know what? This just doesn't work. This is the reason why I didn't reach out in the first place. I implore you not to have that perspective. I encourage you to stick with it and try somebody new, try a different approach, try a different modality. And there are many people outside of law enforcement in the clinical space that purport to be experts in treating first responders. I saw it firsthand. And then there are some that are outright deceptive in it, and there's others that have great intentions, but that are not in a position that they should be servicing first responders. But on the flip side of that, and I had mentioned this once before, that you don't have to necessarily have somebody that's an officer, a fireman, an EMT, a veteran to get good quality care. Again, because we forget that we're more than just this uniform. It is a big piece of the therapeutic alliance that you form with that individual, but it's not everything. So if you go into exploring, seeking help, and you're not a first responder, you're not a veteran, I don't want to talk to you. Don't stop there, right? Push a little bit, and don't get discouraged when you've tried one or two. That's everything. The same reason we wouldn't want people to categorize us as bad when you have that one bad apple, right?
Right.
There's a lot of folks out there doing a lot of amazing work. So just like you said before, keep pushing, keep after it.
Yes, thank you. I just want you to be careful out there and just make sure that you know. I think, Jace, you said it great. You may run into them, but don't quit. Find what works for you. Keep trying to find what works for you because, hey, I'm going to tell you this. It like the first couple things did not work for me. I really was at that point. I mean, I tried the peer thing. It was all right, but it didn't really work for me. It helped for a little bit, but I needed something more. you know, and then I moved on to something else. And then I moved on to trying to have a therapist. And then I moved on to anxiety drugs and things like that, and things that wasn't working. I'm not a pill guy. It didn't work for me. I couldn't do that. So what I found is this is where I'm at. This is my space that helps me each and every day, and being able to talk with people. So it's not going to be the first thing. It might not be the second thing. Hey, you might get lucky. It might be the first thing. It might work for you. And I wish you for that. But please know it's a journey. It is not something that's going to be a one-shot deal. It's a journey. And we understand that. And everybody understands that. Because if you've done this for any amount of time, there's a lot of stuff up there that you need to work through. And it's not an easy task. I'm not going to sit here and say it is. It's not an easy task. So I want to end with something. I know I don't ask questions, but I have to ask this question because Barbara asked me this question. And I want to ask you this question. So when we were speaking, she put it this way, and I'm going to try to use her words or paraphrase the best I can. Your guy's book is Living Blue. I am Deep Blue. What is blue to
Barbara asked you that question, huh?
Yep.
So the name Living Blue was the result of my wife. She came up with the book. And the living part for us is everyone that lives this life. The officer, the son, the daughter, the mother, the father, the cousin, the brother, the sister, the close friend. Everyone that is in that officer's life, they're also living blue. So that blue encompasses everyone in this space. So that's the title, Living Blue. It's everybody. And living is I hope the loudest word in the title, in that no matter what, keep living. When you have no other hope left, borrow somebody else's, keep living. When you've hit your wall, like we said before, you've tripped up and you've smacked your face on the ground, get back up, keep living. But the blue is everybody that is an officer, everyone that loves an officer. It's the whole family, and the family is bigger than the ones that just wear the uniform. It's the ones that are waiting for them to come home too.
Jason, I have no other better way to end that. I thank you very much, my brother, for coming on. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, man.
I thank you for the time, and everybody out there, please, if you did not get it, check out Living Blue. I am in the middle of reading Living Blue right now. I can tell you where I'm at so far. It's a fabulous book. I think that anybody who, as he puts it so eloquently, is living blue, is part of a blue family, it's something for them to read. Where I am now, I'm enjoying it. When I'm done, I'm actually going to pass it along to my wife. She wants to read it, so I'm going to do that. Check out their website. Check out their Living Blue apparel, because I'm gonna be hitting some of that up very, very, very soon.
You got some good stuff.
I got conferences.
In the next couple of weeks.
I got conferences coming up. I got to rock the Living Blue apparel. So, my friend, I hope to talk again soon. I thank you for your time. I wish you the best in everything that you do, and I hope you stay safe, my brother.
God bless you, Chris.
You've been listening to the DeepBlu Project. As a father, husband, friend, and someone who loves to chat about anything and everything, Chris brings over 3 decades of public service experience to the table. With a background in firefighting and law enforcement, along with degrees in criminal justice and behavioral science, he's seen it all, and he's learned a thing or two along the way. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on LinkedIn and X at DeepBlu Project. Find our website at deepblueproject.com, and to reach out, send an email to deepblueproject@outlook.com. Keep keeping it real, and we'll see you next time on the DeepBlu Project.